Ever since Toy Story hit the big screen in 1995, Pixar's computer-animated movies have been a celebrated part of the pop culture landscape. Each new Pixar film is greeted with enthusiasm from fans who are eager to take in the company's latest storytelling triumph. Yet that doesn't mean every movie Pixar has worked on turned into box office gold. In fact, more than once a Pixar production never saw the light of day. Whether it was because of budgetary concerns, poor storytelling, or other factors, these movies were canceled. In this video, we'll tell you about some fascinating Pixar projects you'll never get to see. Monsters, Inc. from 2001 was only Pixar's fourth film, and since its release, it's become a beloved classic. It's hard to imagine the movie without the friendship between Mike and Sully, or the connection Sully strikes up with Boo. In fact, Boo is the catalyst for all the action in the movie, and what an adorable catalyst she is. Yet if the studio had gone with director Pete Docter's original idea for the film, things might have been very different. Docter's original pitch for the film centered on the life of a 30-year-old male accountant. Sounds exciting, doesn't it? The plot would have involved the accountant finding a book of monsters he drew when he was a child. Monsters he'd long forgotten about. Once the book triggers his memories, though, the monsters start to haunt him. In the movie, each one would have represented a different childhood fear or phobia that the man repressed but never really got over. The idea of monsters standing in for fears is intriguing, but definitely not nearly as cheery and hopeful as the Monsters, Inc. we know and love. The release of the first Toy Story movie was a groundbreaking moment in film history, and the popularity of its characters has endured to this day. We know them so well now that it's hard to imagine Toy Story's Woody as anything other than the charismatic leader of the toys in Andy's room. Sure, he experienced moments of jealousy because of Buzz Lightyear's arrival, but he always tried to do the right thing. And that's what's made it possible for Woody to be the star of the hit Toy Story franchise. It turns out, though, in Pixar's original concept for Toy Story, Woody was supposed to be the villain of the piece. In the Toy Story that was released in theaters, Woody was an Old West sheriff, but initially the cowboy doll was envisioned as a gunslinging bad guy. Concept art of this evil version of Woody was even created that shows him with slitted eyes and the chin of a ventriloquist dummy. We're glad Pixar realized Woody worked better as a hero. Long before Maurice Sendak's 1963 book Where the Wild Things Are was adapted into a lush 2009 film, there was another version in development. It was 1983, and future Pixar head John Lasseter wanted to showcase what computer-generated animation could do. At the time, Disney owned the rights to Where the Wild Things Are, and it was decided that this would be the perfect vehicle for a test. A 30-second clip was produced that combined traditionally animated characters with computer-generated backgrounds. While some people at Disney loved the test footage and wanted to continue work on the movie, costs got in the way. Plus, the higher-ups didn't see the potential in CG, so they canceled the project. Eventually, Disney would lose the rights to Where the Wild Things Are. That gave Warner Brothers the opportunity to scoop them up and bring the story to the big screen. And Lasseter went on to found Pixar, which Disney would later end up buying. Before Disney acquired Pixar, the Mouse House had a distribution deal with the production company. That deal gave Disney the rights to all the stories and characters Pixar produced while they worked together. However, in 2005, the agreement was coming to an end, so Disney set up a production company called Circle 7, whose sole purpose was to make sequels to Pixar's successful movies. One of the films Circle 7 worked on was Finding Nemo 2, and it should come as no surprise that the story Circle 7 developed was nothing like Finding Dory. A script for Finding Nemo 2 was written in which Nemo's father Marlin went missing. The film also saw Dory completely regain her compromised memory as well as the return of Nemo's long-thought-to-be-eaten brother. In addition, charismatic creatures like polar bears and dolphins were set to make appearances. In the end, Disney purchased Pixar. With the production company reunited with the studio, Pixar again took the reins on sequels to all their projects, which in the case of Finding Nemo 2 probably worked out best for both fans and Disney. Another project that Circle 7 worked on along with Finding Nemo 2 was a follow-up to Monsters, Inc. Monsters, Inc. 2 Lost in Scaredise. It had a simple premise. Mike and Sully would go to the human world to give Boo a birthday present. What the Monster Buddies didn't know is that Boo and her family had moved away. The rest of the movie centers on Mike and Sully attempting to find Boo somewhere in the human world. The catch? They're not permitted back into Monstropolis until they find her, leading to a lot of tension between the pair. This one got well into development. Concept art was created and a teaser trailer was even produced before the project was scrapped. After Pixar and Disney reunited, Pixar wanted to go their own way with the follow-ups to their properties. That is what led to 2013's Monsters, Inc. prequel, Monsters University. Yet the cancellation of Lost and Scaredise may not have been our gain. Circle 7's take on the sequel was reportedly praised by many people in the know. Of course, all isn't lost. Pixar could always choose to produce a Monsters, Inc. sequel in the future. Pixar has already given us a Toy Story 3 and 4, but at the time of the separation between Pixar and Disney, only the first two movies in the franchise existed. So Disney's Circle 7 was tasked with developing a continuation of the Toy Story saga. The company's version of a Toy Story 3 was the project that got furthest down the production pipeline. However, it was very different from the Toy Story 3 that eventually came to movie theaters. Circle 7's version of the threequel saw Buzz Lightyear's entire toy line get recalled, and Buzz gets shipped back to his manufacturer. So the other toys follow him on a mission to rescue him. The story would have taken the toys on an adventure around the globe, where they would have met a bevy of new characters. Plus, Buzz would have bonded with other recalled toys. Before it was cancelled, things went far enough that promotional materials were created for the movie. This version of the third Toy Story went away when Disney bought Pixar, yet despite the differences between Circle 7's and Pixar's versions of the film, the two share a surprisingly similar scene. In the earlier version, Buzz almost gets mashed into trash, just like Woody and the gang in the film that was ultimately released. Pixar is known for computer animation, but that hasn't stopped it from dabbling in other forms of filmmaking. That's why the company recruited Henry Selick, the stop-motion animation guru behind films like Coraline and A Nightmare Before Christmas. Selick was brought on to direct 4 new movies that would combine stop-motion techniques with Pixar's creative storytelling. The first film Selick worked on was The Shadow King, which was originally called Shademaker. A synopsis of the film describes the main character as a 9-year-old orphan from New York named Hap, who has weird, long-fingered hands. Hap is ashamed of his hands, but once he learns how to make hand shadows that come to life, he realizes his hands are weapons in a shadow war. He uses them to defend his brother Richard and ultimately all of New York against a terrible monster. While the plot sounds fascinating, the relationship between Pixar and Selick was rocky at best. The movie was given an October 4th, 2013 release date, but then Pixar ended its involvement even though it had already sunk $50 million into the project. There's speculation that the tone of the film was too dark for the Pixar brand, and that Selick and the Pixar higher-ups didn't get along. However, no solid official explanation was given. Nonetheless, Pixar let Selick shop the project elsewhere. K5 International picked up the rights and even hired some exceptional vocal talent such as Catherine O'Hara and Brendan Gleeson. Unfortunately, The Shadow King still hasn't seen the light of day. In addition to stop motion, Pixar also took a crack at making a live-action movie. Following the smashing success of The Incredibles, director Brad Bird started working on the movie 1906. The film was a co-production of Pixar, Warner Brothers, and Disney, and was based on the historical novel by James D'Alessandro. The story centered on the San Francisco earthquake and fire at the dawn of the 20th century. The premise was exciting, but the project seemed to have trouble getting off the ground. Bird took a break to direct 2007's Ratatouille, but the budget was already tipping the scales at $200 million. Bird and his colleagues attempted to save the movie with a script rewrite. However, the demands of a film that required the dramatic destruction of an entire city proved to be too much. So despite all the time and money the studios invested, by 2012 all parties involved were done with 1906. Today, WALL-E is one of the most adored characters in Pixar history. Even though he doesn't speak English, the little trash compactor was an endearing presence throughout his self-titled film. It turns out, though, that things could have been very different. Pete Docter's original idea for the film has some familiar elements, including an Earth overrun by trash and a little robot. Yet the movie Docter conceived, which would have been called Trash Planet, never would have sent WALL-E into space. Instead, it would have told the story of a family of blobby, gibberish-spewing aliens who are bothered by an annoying robot. The surprise twist was that those aliens were actually evolved from humans. They were the next progression in human evolution after the lazy, boneless people seen on the spaceship in the version of WALL-E we know. Docter envisioned a movie that wouldn't have included a single word of any real language. At a minimum, the movie sounds like it could have been an interesting filmmaking experiment. Newt may be the most famous Pixar title that never was. The movie was announced in 2008 and was scheduled to hit the big screen in summer 2011. The story focused on two blue-footed newts, Newt and Brooke, who are the last of their kind. To save the species, the pair are forced together by scientists and expected to mate. Even though they're the only hope for the survival of their species, the two newts find they can't stand each other. As the film's release drew closer, signs of trouble started to emerge. First, the film's original release date was pushed to 2012, and then the title was replaced on the schedule by Brave. What was going on? For one, the Fox movie Rio, which had a similar plot, was released in 2011. More importantly, though, Pixar brought on Pete Docter to rework the movie. However, instead of moving forward with Newt's story, Docter presented another option, the idea that would become Inside Out. Ultimately, everyone involved thought Inside Out was the better story, which led to Newt's cancellation. When it comes to Hollywood movie making, not everything that gets a green light actually gets produced. And even a studio like Pixar has seen more than one project end up on the scrap heap. Personally, we're still mourning the loss of Monsters, Inc. 2, Lost in Scaredise. Which of these canceled Pixar movies would you have liked to see? Tell us what you think in the comments. And before you go, like and subscribe to The Binger for more videos like this. Thanks for watching.